The war had lasted 3 long years. The Empire came from beyond the stars with ships that blotted out the sun. Their soldiers were tall and strong, with skin like blue metal and eyes that glowed in the dark. They conquered world after world, system after system. But when they reached human space, something changed. The humans fought back harder than anyone expected. Every battle took longer than it should. Every victory cost more blood than they wanted to pay. The frontier colonies refused to surrender. Human ships were smaller and weaker, but they fought with a fury that surprised the aliens. Warlord commanded the fleet. He was a veteran of 100 campaigns across the galaxy. He had crushed rebellions and destroyed empires. But these humans were different. They didn't break. After 3 years, his forces were tired. His emperor was asking questions. The war needed to end. That was when the diplomats came with their solution. A marriage. A treaty sealed in blood and tradition. Princess stood in her father's throne room and listened to her fate. She was the emperor's youngest daughter, 26 years old, trained as a warrior and tactician. She had served in the fleet herself, commanded soldiers in battle. But now she would become something else. A peace offering, a bridge between two species. "You understand what this means?" her father asked. His voice was old and tired. "Yes, father," said. She kept her back straight and her voice steady. "I will marry a human. I will live among them. The war will end." Her father nodded slowly. "Warlord believes this is wise. The humans have agreed. They are selecting a suitable husband for you now." Felt something cold settle in her stomach. She had always known she might be married for political reasons. That was the burden of being born into the imperial family. But she had imagined marrying another, perhaps a governor or admiral. Not an alien, not a human. "What is he like?" she asked. "Does it matter?" her father replied. 3 weeks later stood in the great hall of the human diplomatic station. Representatives from both sides filled the room. The air smelled strange, full of oxygen and nitrogen in ratios that made her lightheaded. Everything was too warm, too bright, too loud. And then she saw him. Captain walked into the hall wearing formal human clothes. He was shorter than any, with black hair and brown eyes. His face was young and kind. He moved quietly, almost apologetically, as if he didn't want to take up too much space. When he reached the altar where waited, he bowed deeply. "Princess," he said in careful, his accent was terrible, "I am honored to meet you." Looked down at this small human and felt her warrior's pride sting. This was her husband. This quiet, gentle man. She had expected a general, perhaps, or at least a warrior who looked like he had seen battle, but looked more like a scholar or a farmer. Behind her she heard diplomats whispering. Some were laughing quietly. Warlord stood in the back of the hall with his arms crossed. He was smiling, not a kind smile. The ceremony was brief. Words were spoken in both languages. Documents were signed, and each cut their palms and pressed them together, mingling blood. The old ritual. When it was done, they were married. "I promise to be a good husband," said quietly in his broken. "I will try to make you happy." Didn't know what to say to that, so she said nothing. The first weeks of marriage were strange. Moved into quarters on the diplomatic station. The rooms were small by standards, but clean and organized. There were books everywhere, real paper books in human languages. Had a small garden in one room where he grew vegetables and flowers under artificial lights. He was impossibly polite. He asked her what she wanted for meals and then cooked them himself. He gave her space when she wanted it and company when she seemed lonely. He never demanded anything. He never raised his voice. He read poetry in the evenings and tended his plants. Didn't understand him at all. "Why did they choose you?" she asked one evening. They were eating dinner together, something that had become a routine. Made simple food that tasted better than it had any right to. "Choose me for what?" asked. "For this marriage. You're a captain, but you seem," searched for the right word, "peaceful, not like a warrior." Smiled a little. Maybe that's why they chose me, for peace. Were you in the war? Yes. Did you fight? Yes. Did you kill any of my people? Smile faded. He set down his fork and looked at her directly. His eyes were very dark and very steady. Yes, he said quietly. I did. I'm sorry for that. Felt something shift in her chest. At least he was honest. At least he didn't pretend the war hadn't happened. I killed humans too, she admitted. I commanded a destroyer in the Outer Rim. We destroyed 3 of your supply ships. Nodded. The war hurt everyone. That's why it needed to end. After that conversation, something changed between them. Not love, not yet, but understanding. They were both soldiers who had done what they were told. Now they were trying to build something different. Began to notice small things about. The way he moved was very precise, very controlled. His hands never shook, even when holding delicate things. He had scars on his arms and back, old ones, carefully healed. When he thought she wasn't watching, his eyes went somewhere else, somewhere distant and dark. One day she accessed his military records. She had clearance as his wife and as a princess. But when she opened the file, most of it was hidden, redacted. Black bars covered whole sections. His service history simply said special operations with no details. His commendations were classified. Even his rank seemed wrong. Captain was too low for someone with his years of service. Who are you really? She whispered to the screen. But she didn't ask him. Something told her she didn't want to know the answer. 6 months passed. The war stayed ended. Trade routes opened between human and space. Diplomats talked about the future, and in their small quarters and built something that looked almost like a normal life. Taught her to cook human food. She taught him to speak properly. They watched films together and argued about philosophy. He showed her his favorite poems. She told him stories about growing up in the imperial palace. Sometimes caught herself smiling at one of his jokes. Sometimes she felt warm when he came home from his duties. Sometimes she thought that maybe this arrangement wouldn't be so bad after all. She should have known peace never lasts. The attack came on a Tuesday morning local time. Was reading in their quarters when the alarm started. Was in the kitchen making tea. He froze when the first siren wailed. Stay here, he said. His voice was completely different, flat, cold, empty of all the warmth she had come to know. What's happening? Ran to the window. In orbit above, 3 dreadnoughts had appeared. She felt her blood turn to ice. Those were military ships, warships. They're breaking the treaty, she whispered. Was already moving. He pulled a case from under their bed, something she had never seen before. Inside was a knife, just a single blade, black and sharp. What are you doing? He looked at her. His kind eyes were gone. What looked back at her was something else entirely. Something that had been hiding behind the smile and the poetry and the gentle hands. Please forgive me, he said. Then he walked out the door, and his world changed forever. Stared at the closed door. Her hands were shaking. Outside, the alarm screamed. She could hear distant explosions, the sound of weapons fire echoing through the station's corridors. The peace she had sacrificed everything for was burning. She ran to the communication panel and opened a secure channel. This is Princess. What is happening? Why are there warships here? The response came from a panicked human officer. Your Highness, we're under attack. 3 dreadnoughts just dropped out of hyperspace. They're deploying troops. We count over 500 soldiers in drop pods. They're cutting through our security forces. 500. Elite shock troops from the look of those ships. The diplomatic station only had 30 guards, maybe 40 if you counted the support staff. They wouldn't last 10 minutes. Where is Warlord? Demanded. There was a pause. Intelligence says he's commanding the attack fleet. Princess, this is his operation. He's declared the treaty void. Felt sick, had planned this. He had smiled at her wedding knowing he would betray it. Her own people, her own military, attacking the station where she lived, attacking her husband. Where had he gone with just that knife? She pulled up the security camera feeds on her personal tablet. Her hands fumbled with the controls. She needed to find him, needed to warn him, needed to tell him to hide. 500 soldiers. What could one man do? Then she saw him on the screen. Corridor 7 near the landing bay. A squad of shock troops moved in formation, weapons ready, armor gleaming. They were professionals, the best the Empire had trained with soldiers like these. Each one was strong enough to bend steel bars and fast enough to dodge bullets. Walked around the corner ahead of them. He looked so small on the screen, just a man in civilian clothes with a knife in his hand. The squad saw him and laughed. Their leader said something, probably telling him to surrender. Moved. His breath stopped. He was so fast, faster than anything she had ever seen. One moment he was standing still, the next he was among them. The knife flashed. The squad leader's throat opened. Before the body fell, had the soldier's rifle. 3 shots, 3 more dead, the knife again, a twist, a turn, bodies falling. 10 seconds, 8 soldiers dead. Watched with her mouth open. This couldn't be real. This couldn't be the man who made her breakfast and read poetry. This was something else, something that wore her husband's face. She switched to another camera, Corridor 9. Another squad, bigger this time, 15 soldiers. They had heard the fighting and were moving to investigate. They found waiting for them. He used their own tactics against them, drew them into a narrow section where their numbers didn't matter, used explosive charges from their own belts to collapse the corridor behind them, trapped them, then hunted them one by one. It took 3 minutes, 15 more bodies. Camera after camera watched her husband kill, not fight, kill. There was no other word for it. He moved through the station like death itself. The soldiers had training and armor and weapons, had centuries of violence compressed into a single human body. He never hesitated, never showed mercy. His face on the cameras was calm, almost peaceful, like he was tending his garden. In the command center, a human officer was counting. Hostile count decreasing. We're reading 200 dead. No, 250. How is that possible? It's him, another voice said. Quiet, odd, it's the ghost. Switched feeds faster, trying to keep up. Landing bay, trapped 50 soldiers inside and vented the atmosphere. They died gasping. Medical section. He used their own medic supplies to create toxins, pumped them through the ventilation. Armory. He destroyed their ammunition, then shot them with their own weapons as they scrambled away from the explosions. He was everywhere. He was nowhere. He flowed through the station like water, finding every weak point, exploiting every mistake. The soldiers started to panic. They fired at shadows, killed each other in the confusion. Their communication network collapsed as hacked their channels and fed them false information. He's doing this alone, whispered one man. On screen entered a cargo bay where the last major group had fortified. 50 soldiers behind barricades with heavy weapons. They had the high ground. They had cover. They had every advantage. Cut the lights and the cameras went to infrared. What saw in those green-tinted images would haunt her forever. Her husband moving in complete darkness, a predator in his natural environment. The soldiers had good low-light vision but moved like he could see perfectly. Or maybe he didn't need to see. Maybe he knew exactly where each target would be. When the lights came back on, 50 more bodies lay still. 23 minutes after the attack began, the diplomatic station fell silent. The alarm stopped. The weapons fire ceased. His tablet showed the final count, 503 soldiers dead. Casualties on the human side, 3 security guards who died in the initial assault. And 1 man standing in the landing bay, covered in blue blood, surrounded by corpses. His door chimed. She jumped, her warrior instincts screaming. But it was voice on the intercom, his normal voice, gentle, tired. "Can I come in? I need to clean up." She opened the door with shaking hands. stood there looking exactly like the man she had married. Same kind eyes, same apologetic smile, except he was drenched in blood from head to foot. It dripped on the floor. His knife hung loose in one hand. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I made a mess." Couldn't speak, she just stared at him. "I know this is frightening," continued. He looked down at himself, at the blood. "I didn't want you to see this side of me. I hoped you never would, but they came for you and I couldn't." His voice broke a little. "I couldn't let them take you." "What are you?" finally whispered. "I'm your husband," said simply. "Everything else is just what I used to be." "Used to be? You just killed 500 soldiers in 23 minutes. 22 minutes and 41 seconds, corrected automatically. Then he winced. "Sorry, old habits. Can I come in? The diplomatic staff will want to talk to us soon." Stepped aside, walked past her toward the bathroom. He moved normally now, that terrible predator Grace hidden again beneath the gentle gardener. She heard water running, heard him washing the blood away. She sat down heavily on their bed. Her mind was racing. Who had she married? What had the humans done, sending this weapon to be her husband? Above the station, the 3 dreadnoughts hung in space. They hadn't moved, hadn't fired on the station, realized they were waiting for their troops to report success. They didn't know yet, didn't know that 500 elite soldiers were dead, didn't know that a single human had killed them all. When came out of the bathroom, he was clean. He wore fresh clothes. He looked like himself again. He sat down beside on the bed, keeping a respectful distance. "I understand if you want to leave," he said quietly. "I understand if you're afraid of me now. What you saw, that's the part of me I've been trying to forget, the part I thought I'd left behind." Looked at him, really looked at him. She saw the scars again, dozens of them, marks from hundreds of battles. She saw the careful way he held himself, always balanced, always ready. She saw the sadness in his eyes, the weight of all those deaths. "How many?" she asked. "How many have you killed?" "I don't know," admitted. "I stopped counting a long time ago." "During the war?" "Before, during. I've been a soldier since I was very young." "The humans sent you here as a weapon," said slowly, understanding. "If my people broke the treaty, you were the punishment." "Yes." "Were you going to tell me?" "No," said. "I hoped I'd never have to be that person again. I thought maybe I could just be a husband, just be normal. I'm sorry." Stood up and walked to the window. The dreadnoughts were moving now, probably receiving reports, probably realizing something had gone terribly wrong. She watched them with military eyes and saw how they moved, aggressive, arrogant. They still thought they could win. "They're going to attack again," she said. "Yes," agreed. "This was just the first wave. Warlord won't accept this failure. He'll commit his full forces." "Can you stop them?" "Alone? No, but I won't be alone. The humans will respond now. The treaty is broken. The war starts again." Pressed her hand against the cold glass. Her reflection stared back at her. A princess who had married for peace. A soldier who had become a pawn. A wife who had just discovered her gentle husband was the most dangerous thing in the galaxy. "I need to know everything," she said. "Who you really are, what they made you, why they chose you for this." Stood up slowly. "All right," he said. "I'll tell you everything, but once you know, you can't unknow it. Once you see me clearly, you might not be able to see me any other way." She turned to face him. "I already saw you on those cameras. I saw what you did." "No," said softly. "You saw what I can do. That's different. You saw the ghost. Now I'll tell you about the man." And in their small quarters, while warships gathered above and armies prepared for battle began to speak, he told her about Ghost Protocol, about the 12 operatives, about the things he had done in the name of peace. And listened and learned and understood just how much her peaceful life had cost. The human diplomatic corps arrived 6 hours after the attack. They came with warships and marines, securing the station and collecting the bodies. watched from her window as transport ships carried away the dead. 503 coffins. 503 families who would never see their soldiers again. Because of one man, her husband. A dignified woman in a formal suit knocked on their door. She introduced herself as ambassador, head of human diplomatic operations. She looked at with a mixture of respect and regret. "Captain," she said, "the High Command wants a full report." "I defended the station as required," replied. His voice was flat, professional. "All hostile forces were eliminated." "Yes, we saw," Ambassador glanced at. "Your Highness, I apologize. We had hoped it would never come to this." "You knew," said. Her voice was harder than she intended. "You knew he was like this. You knew if my people attacked, this would happen." "Yes," admitted, "we knew. You used me as bait." "We gave Warlord every reason not to attack. We thought the presence of the princess and a ghost operative would be deterrent enough. We were wrong. Is more ambitious than we calculated." "Ghost operative," repeated. "That's what you call him." Nodded. "Perhaps we should explain properly. Your Highness, what do you know about the Ghost Protocol?" "Only what told me. That there are 12 operatives, that they were made to fight alone behind enemy lines." "That's accurate but incomplete," said. She pulled out a tablet and displayed files. 20 years ago, human military command faced a problem. We're a young species in the galaxy. Most alien races are stronger, faster, more advanced. In conventional warfare, we lose, so we developed asymmetric responses. Looked at the files, medical records, neural augmentation procedures, genetic modifications, training programs that looked more like torture. Ghost Protocol was the most extreme program, continued. 12 volunteers underwent procedures that enhanced their reflexes, strength, and cognitive processing. They were trained for independent operations in hostile territory. Each ghost operative can function as a complete military unit. "You turned them into weapons," said quietly. "We turned them into survivors," corrected. "In a galaxy where humans are outmatched, the ghosts kept us alive. During the war with your empire, they were our most effective asset." "How effective?" Hesitated. Then she pulled up another file. "Captain's service record, what we can declassify now that the situation has changed." Read the screen and felt her blood go cold. Operation Silent Thunder destroyed the supply depot at Rigel Prime. Estimated enemy casualties 3,000. Duration 2 days. Operatives deployed 1. Operation Whisper, assassination of Admiral and his command staff. Enemy casualties 47. Duration 4 hours. Operatives deployed 1. Operation Ghost Wind, boarding and capture of the dreadnought Eternal Victory. Enemy casualties 2,300. Duration 1 night. Operatives deployed 1. The list went on. 27 major operations, hundreds of smaller missions, thousands of soldiers dead. "The silent death," whispered. "We heard stories. Intelligence reported a elite strike team working in the Outer Rim. They said it would take at least 50 commandos to do that kind of damage." "It was one man," said. "It was always just." Looked at her husband. He sat quietly, staring at nothing. He didn't defend himself, didn't explain, just accepted the weight of those numbers. 40% of our military losses in the Outer Rim," said slowly. "One man caused 40% of our casualties." "Yes. And you married him to me." "We married him to you because the war needed to end," said, "and because wanted to retire. He requested release from Ghost Protocol after the peace talks began. He said he was tired of killing. He wanted a normal life. So you gave him a wife and hoped everything would be fine." "We gave him a reason to stay retired," said. "We thought if he had something to protect, someone to build a life with, he would finally be able to stop being a ghost. And it worked. For 6 months it worked. He was happy until forced his hand." Turned away, she felt used, manipulated. Her marriage was a military operation, her life was a deterrent, and what was her husband or her bodyguard, her partner or her warden? "I know you're angry," said gently. "You have every right to be, but Princess, you should know something else. When we selected for this marriage, we gave him all the information. We told him about you, your service record, your decorations, your reputation as a warrior and leader. We gave him a choice." "What choice?" "We asked if he wanted this assignment, if he wanted to marry you. We told him he could refuse. We would find another ghost, someone who didn't care about the personal cost." "Looked at, and what did you say?" Finally spoke. His voice was soft, almost embarrassed. "I said yes immediately. I didn't even think about it." "Why?" "Because I read about you," said. He met her eyes. "Your military service, the way you treated your soldiers, the battle reports that showed you always tried to minimize casualties, even enemy casualties. You were a warrior but not a killer. You fought because it was your duty, not because you enjoyed it. I thought," he paused, "I thought maybe you would understand what it's like to be shaped by war but wanting peace." Something in his chest loosened, just a little. "I meant everything," continued. "Every dinner we cooked together, every conversation, every time I read you poetry or showed you my garden. That wasn't an act. That was me trying to be the person I wanted to be instead of the person I was made to be. And now I'm both. I'm sorry." Ambassador cleared her throat. "Your Highness, we need to discuss the situation with Warlord. His attack failed, but he's not retreating. Our intelligence shows he's gathering more forces. He's committed to war now. He can't explain the loss of 500 elite soldiers without revealing his treachery." "So he'll lie," said. "He'll say humans attacked first. He'll say the treaty was a trap." "Exactly, and many will believe him. Your father, the Emperor, may not have a choice but to support him." Thought about her father, old and tired and desperate to maintain his empire. Would he believe lies? Would he sacrifice his daughter for political stability? "I need to contact my father," she said. "We can arrange that," said. "But Princess, you should know that we're preparing for full-scale war. Ghost Protocol is being reactivated. All 12 operatives are being recalled to service. Including, if he agrees, it's voluntary for married operatives." Looked at her husband. "Will you go?" "Do you want me to?" asked quietly. It was a genuine question. He would do whatever she asked. Stay and protect her. Go and fight the war. Disappear entirely if that's what she needed. Realized she had a choice now. She could reject him, demand a different protector, return to her people and claim abuse. The humans would let her go. They would understand. Or she could stand beside the man who had killed thousands of her people, but who read poetry and grew tomatoes and made her laugh. "I want the truth from now on," she said firmly. "No more secrets. No more pretending. If you're a ghost, then you're a ghost. But you're also my husband, both things all the time." Nodded slowly. "I can do that. And I'm coming with you." Everyone in the room froze. "Your Highness," Ambassador started, "that's not possible. Ghost operations are extremely dangerous." "I'm a trained warrior," said coldly. "I commanded ships in battle. I know tactics and strategy better than anyone on your side. If you're going to fight my people, you need me." Said carefully, "What I do isn't warfare, it's assassination, sabotage, the kind of fighting that has no honor." "I don't care about honor anymore," replied. "Destroyed that when he betrayed the treaty. He used me. He attacked while I was here as a peace offering. That's not honor, that's cowardice." She walked to the window and looked up at the stars where somewhere was gathering his forces, where her father was making decisions that would shape the future, where thousands of soldiers on both sides were preparing to die. "I married for peace," she said quietly. "I gave up my rank, my position, my entire life for peace, and threw it away. He made my sacrifice meaningless." She turned back to face them. Her spine was straight. Her voice was clear. This was Princess, decorated warrior of the Empire. So now I'm going to make him pay for that. I'm going to help end this war. And I'm going to do it standing next to my husband. Both of them, the gardener and the ghost. Ambassador looked at Captain. Stood up, he walked to and took her hand. His grip was gentle, but his eyes were hard. If she goes, I go, he said. We're a team now. Sighed, the High Command won't like this. The High Command married me to a ghost operative and didn't tell me, said flatly. I don't particularly care what they like. A small smile crossed his face. I see why I chose you. All right, I'll forward your request to participate in operations. But Princess, you need to understand what you're offering. Ghost missions have a high casualty rate, even among the operatives themselves. How many of the original 12 are still alive? Asked. The silence answered her question. 8 said quietly. 4 died during the war. We're down to 8 now. And you'll do this again, knowing you might die. I've always known I might die, said. Every mission, every battle, that's part of being a ghost. We accept the risk because someone has to. Squeezed his hand. Then I accept it too, because someone has to stand with you. Ambassador gathered her things. I'll make the arrangements. Transport leaves in 12 hours. Get some rest. Both of you. The next few weeks are going to be difficult. After she left and stood alone in their quarters, the garden lights were on, making the plants glow softly in the artificial twilight. Everything looked the same as it had that morning, but everything had changed. Are you sure about this? Asked. No, admitted. I'm terrified, but I'm also angry, and I need to do something. I can't just sit here while the galaxy burns. I understand. Do you really? Do you understand that I just watched you kill 500 people, and now I'm choosing to fight beside you anyway? Looked at her with those deep, sad eyes. I understand that war makes us all into things we don't want to be. And I understand that sometimes the only way to end a war is to win it so completely that no one dares to start another one. Is that what you're going to do? Win it completely? I'm going to try, said. And now I'll have you helping me. That's going to make all the difference. They stood together in the garden, surrounded by the plants had grown with such care. Life growing in an artificial space. Peace maintained by the threat of violence. I'm still angry at you, said, for not telling me. I know. But I understand why you didn't. Thank you. And when this is over, when the war ends, I want you to teach me everything about being a ghost. Everything they did to you. Everything you learned. Because if we're going to build a real future together, I need to know all of you. Not just the parts that are easy to love. Pulled her close. It's a deal, and you should know something. What? You're the first person in 10 years who's made me think I might deserve a future. They held each other as the station hummed around them, and somewhere above, fleets gathered for war. 3 days after the attack, Warlord made his announcement across all channels. He stood before the cameras in full military uniform, his face grave and angry. The humans have betrayed us, he declared. They invited our diplomatic envoy to their station and slaughtered them. 500 soldiers murdered in cold blood. This act of treachery cannot stand. The treaty is void. The Empire is at war. Watched the broadcast from the human command center. Her hands were clenched into fists. He's lying, she said through gritted teeth. He attacked first. He broke the treaty. We know, Admiral said. He was the ranking human military officer, a stern man with gray hair and cold eyes. But he controls the narrative on your side. Most will believe him. My father will know the truth. I sent him proof, video recordings, testimony. Will he act on it? Didn't answer. She didn't know. Her father was old and his grip on power was weak. Commanded the loyalty of too many military units. If the emperor opposed him, it could mean civil war. Her father might choose to accept lie to maintain stability. The thought made her sick. "What's our response?" she asked. Admiral pulled up a star map. "Is gathering his forces at 3 rally points. He has 6 fleets under his direct command, about 400 ships total. They're preparing for a full invasion of human space." "That's not enough to win," said, studying the map with her tactical training. "He'd need twice that many to successfully invade and hold territory." "He doesn't plan to hold territory," said quietly. He stood beside, wearing black tactical gear now instead of civilian clothes. The transformation was complete. This was the Ghost. "He plans to strike fast and hard, destroy military targets, kill as many humans as possible, then use the casualties to force a favorable peace." "Terror tactics," said. "Yes, it's what I would do in his position." Admiral nodded. "Our intelligence agrees. He's targeting 3 major colonies. If he destroys them, the death toll will be in the millions. Human public opinion will demand we surrender rather than continue the war." "So we stop him," said firmly. "That's the idea, but we need to move fast. Ghost protocol is being deployed." The Admiral gestured to a side room where other figures waited. "Captain, would you introduce your team?" Led into the briefing room. 8 people waited there, men and women of different ages and backgrounds, but they all had the same look, the same careful control, the same dangerous calm. "These are the other Ghosts," said. "Let me introduce them." He went around the room. Captain, specialist in demolitions and engineering. Lieutenant, expert in infiltration and disguise. Commander, naval combat specialist. Captain, communications and electronic warfare. Lieutenant Minu, sniper and reconnaissance. Captain, medical and chemical weapons. Commander, heavy weapons and assault. 8 killers, 8 weapons disguised as people. They looked at with cautious interest. She was an outsider, an alien, technically their enemy. "This is my wife," said simply. "Princess, she'll be providing tactical intelligence on operations." "Can we trust her?" Lieutenant Minu asked bluntly. "Yes," said, no hesitation, no doubt. "Attacked while I was on that station," said, meeting their gazes. "He used me as bait and then tried to kill me anyway. He destroyed the peace I gave up everything to create. So no, I'm not on your side because I like humans. I'm on your side because I want dead." A few of the Ghosts smiled. Captain actually laughed. "I like her," said. "She's honest." Admiral entered with data pads for everyone. "Your mission is simple. Has concentrated his forces, but that makes his command structure vulnerable. We need you to decapitate his leadership before he launches his invasion. Take out his admirals. Destroy his supply lines. Create enough chaos that his fleets can't coordinate." "How much time do we have?" Commander asked. 3 weeks, maybe less. After that, his forces will be in position and the invasion begins." 3 weeks to dismantle 6 fleets, Lieutenant said thoughtfully. "That's aggressive." "You've done it before," Admiral said. "That was during the war when they expected us," Captain pointed out. "Now we're hitting them in supposedly secure territory. They'll have their guard up after what did on the station." "Then be better than their guard," the Admiral said flatly. "Because if you fail, millions die, human and both. Won't stop until he's won or we're all dead." The Ghosts exchanged glances. No words needed. They had worked together for years. They communicated in looks and tiny gestures. "We'll do it," Commander said. "But we need full support, transport, intelligence, extraction if things go wrong." "You'll have it. Princess will be your liaison with intelligence assets. We have a few officers on their side who oppose. They'll feed you information." Felt everyone's eyes on her. "I can do that," she said. "I know who we can trust in the military. Not many, but enough." The briefing continued for hours. Maps, ship movements, target priorities. The Ghosts asked questions in short, efficient bursts. They absorbed information like machines. Contributed what she knew about security protocols, fleet formations, command structures. She began to understand why these people were so effective. They weren't just skilled fighters. They were brilliant tacticians who could process information and adapt instantly. Each one was carrying out mental simulations, running scenarios, calculating odds. When the briefing ended, the ghosts dispersed to prepare, walked back to their temporary quarters on the military vessel. "You're quiet," he said. "I'm thinking," replied. "Your team, they're impressive, but they're also not quite human anymore, are they? Considered this. We're human, but we're also something else. The modifications changed us, made us faster, stronger, smarter in some ways, but the cost," he paused. "4 of our team are dead, and the rest of us carry scars you can't see, nightmares, memories, the knowledge of what we've done. Do you regret it, becoming a ghost?" "Sometimes, but then I think about all the people who are alive because of what we did, the colonies we saved, the battles we won. Does that balance out the people we killed? I don't know, I hope so." They reached their quarters. Inside had already packed his gear, weapons, armor, medical supplies, everything a ghost needed for independent operations. "I have something for you," said. He pulled out a small device. "This is an emergency beacon. If anything happens, if you're in danger, you activate this and I'll come, no matter where I am, no matter what I'm doing." "Took it carefully. You're assuming we'll be separated." "Ghost operations work best when we're spread out. I might be on one side of space while you're on the other, but this beacon has a range of 3 systems. I'll always be able to reach you." "What if you're in the middle of a mission?" "Then I'll finish fast and come get you," said simply. Clipped the beacon to her belt. "I'm not helpless, you know. I've been in combat before." "I know, but humor me. You're my wife. I need to know you're safe." Over the next 2 weeks, worked with the ghosts and human intelligence to map out's organization. She contacted old friends in the military, officers she trusted who were disgusted by treachery. Slowly, they built a network of informants. The news from space was bad. The Emperor had publicly supported its version of events. Whether he believed the lies or simply couldn't oppose them, the result was the same. The Empire was unified behind the warlord. Fleet after fleet declared for him. Resources flowed to his rally points. And Princess was declared a traitor. Her titles were stripped. Her family disowned her. She was in name only now. "I'm sorry," said when the news came through. "Don't be," replied. Her voice was hard. "They made their choice, I made mine. Now we'll see who chose correctly." The first ghost team deployed 7 days before its planned invasion. Captains and slipped into the supply depot at Helix Station. 3 hours later, the depot exploded. Enough ammunition and fuel to supply 2 fleets, gone in a single catastrophic chain reaction. 2 days later, Admiral, one of its most loyal commanders, died in his sleep. Captain had introduced a custom toxin into his quarters ventilation system. Tasteless, odorless, untraceable. The Admiral's personal guard never knew anyone had been there. Lieutenant Minyu took position on an asteroid and shot 3 transport ships carrying elite ground forces. Each shot was from 7 kilometers away. Each shot killed the ship's reactor, causing catastrophic failures. 3 ships, 300 soldiers, 3 perfect shots. The military started to panic. They increased security, changed protocols, moved commanders to secret locations. It didn't matter, the ghosts were better. Commander infiltrated the dreadnought Crimson Dawn disguised as a maintenance worker. He uploaded malware into the ship's navigation systems. When the fleet tried to jump to hyperspace, Crimson Dawn's engines failed. The massive ship collided with 2 others, 1,700 casualties. Lieutenant walked into a military command center dressed as a courier. She delivered a package that contained nothing but a message and a small explosive. The message was from "Surrender now." The explosive destroyed the center's communication systems. Fleet coordination fell apart. Coordinated it all from the human command ship. She provided target priorities, identified vulnerabilities, warned the ghosts about security changes. She watched each successful operation with grim satisfaction. This was her revenge, not personal, strategic. Every target she identified was one more nail in its coffin. Commander and captain worked together to destroy his flagship manufacturing facility. They fought their way through 200 guards, planted charges on the main reactors, and escaped on a stolen transport. The facility exploded, taking 6 partially completed dreadnoughts with it. A year's worth of production, erased in a single night. 3 weeks became 2, 2 became 1. His invasion force was still formidable, but it was crippled. He had lost 3 admirals, 40% of his supplies, and the coordination needed for a successful strike. His soldiers were demoralized. His officers were afraid to give orders because anyone in command became a target. And through it all watched her husband work, moved through space like a force of nature, unstoppable, inevitable. The silent death had returned, and this time he had 7 siblings with him. On the final night before the scheduled invasion, all 8 ghosts converged on the flagship Eternal Wrath, where Warlord had taken personal command. They slipped through security that should have been impossible to breach. They disabled systems that should have been invulnerable. They moved through the ship like they owned it. Watched through the security feeds that Captain had hacked. She saw her husband and his team paint the corridors with blood. She saw them fight with a synchronization that was almost beautiful. 8 minds moving as one. They reached the command deck, broke through the final defensive line, stood before Warlord himself. The Warlord activated his personal combat armor, the most advanced technology the Empire could produce. He drew his weapons and prepared to fight. "Come then, Ghost," snarled. "Let's see if you can kill me." His response was calm and cold. "I don't need to kill you, I just need you to fail." He pressed a button on his wrist device. Throughout his fleet, charges that the ghosts had planted over the previous weeks all detonated simultaneously. Not enough to destroy the ships, just enough to cripple them. Engines failed. Weapons went offline. Life support flickered. "Your invasion is over," said. "Surrender or die." Roared and attacked. The fight lasted 7 minutes. The Warlord was skilled and powerful, but was a ghost, and this time he had 7 others with him. When it ended, Warlord lay dead on his command deck. His fleet was disabled. His invasion was cancelled. The war was over, again. But this time, everyone knew exactly why. The news of Warlord's death spread across both human and space like wildfire. The mighty Warlord who had commanded 6 fleets and planned to conquer human space had been killed by 8 operatives. The invasion force he had built with such care was crippled and drifting. But not everyone was ready to accept defeat. Had loyalists, officers who had tied their fortunes to his ambitions, soldiers who believed in his vision of supremacy. And they had one advantage: they still had numbers. Even crippled, fleets represented a massive military force. 3 days after his death, his second-in-command, Admiral, seized control. He was younger than, more ruthless, and driven by rage rather than ambition. "The humans sent assassins to murder our leader," announced to the forces. "They butchered him on his own flagship using cowardly tactics. This is not war. This is terrorism, and we will respond in kind." Watched this broadcast from the human command ship and felt ice in her veins. Wasn't trying to win anymore. He was trying to make humanity hurt. "He's going to target civilians," she said to Admiral. "He can't win a military victory, so he'll kill as many humans as possible before he goes down." "Agreed," the Admiral said grimly. "Our intelligence shows he's gathering what remains of his forces at Prime. That fortress world was Stronghold, has pulled back to defensive positions there." "How many troops?" "Best estimate, 100,000 soldiers, maybe more, plus orbital defense platforms, shield generators, and automated weapon systems. It's a fortress in the truest sense." Entered the command center. He looked tired. The operation to kill had taken a toll. All 8 ghosts had injuries, some serious, but they were alive and ready to continue. "Won't surrender," said. "He'll fight to the last man, which means we need to take him out before he can launch his revenge attacks." "Can your team handle it?" Admiral asked. Was quiet for a moment. Prime is different from a ship or depot. It's a fortified world with a full garrison. 8 ghosts can do a lot of damage, but 100,000 troops is beyond even our capabilities. "Then what do you suggest?" "I go alone." The room fell silent. "Alone," said, "that's suicide." "Maybe," admitted, "but if I go alone I can move faster, strike harder. I won't have to coordinate with a team or worry about extractions. I can focus entirely on the mission." The mission being to kill and destroy his ability to wage war, take out the command structure, sabotage the defense systems, make Prime unable to launch those revenge attacks. "One man against a fortress world," Admiral said slowly. "Captain, I appreciate your confidence, but that's not a mission. That's a death wish." "I've done it before," said quietly. "Eternal victory. I boarded that dreadnought alone and killed everyone aboard. This is bigger, but the principle is the same." "That dreadnought had 2,000 soldiers," said. "This has 100,000. I won't fight them all, just the ones between me and the target." Stood up. "No, absolutely not. I forbid it." Everyone looked at her. "You forbid it?" asked gently. "Yes, as your wife, I'm exercising my right to tell you when you're being an idiot." She turned to Admiral. "There has to be another way, a full military assault, siege tactics, something that doesn't involve sending my husband on a suicide mission." "A full assault would cost tens of thousands of lives," the Admiral said, "and it would take weeks. Could launch his attacks any time. We need a fast solution." "Then send all the ghosts. Send a support team, send me, but don't send alone." Walked to and took her hands. "I appreciate what you're trying to do, but this is what I was made for. One person infiltrating an impossible target. It's literally my specialty." "Your specialty is surviving," said fiercely, "and you can't survive this. The odds are too bad." "I've beaten bad odds before." "Not like this, never like this." They stood facing each other, the argument hanging in the air. Around them, officers and analysts pretended not to watch. Finally, Captain spoke up. "What if we compromise?" Everyone turned to her. "Goes in alone," continued. "But the rest of us provide support from outside. We disable the orbital defenses, create diversions, draw away troops. We can't go inside with him, but we can make his job easier." "And I go too," said firmly. "Your Highness," Admiral started. I know Prime. I trained there. I know the layout, the protocols, the security systems. If he's going in, he needs that information, and I can provide it better in person than through a comm link." Looked at her seriously. "If we do this together, I can't protect you. I'll be focused on the mission. You'll have to keep yourself safe." "I'm a trained soldier. I can handle it." "This isn't a battle. It's infiltration and assassination. It's dark corridors and quick kills. It's nothing like commanding a ship." "Then teach me. You have 3 days before we reach Prime. Teach me how to be a ghost." For a long moment said nothing. Then he smiled slightly. "All right, but you have to promise me something." "What?" "If I tell you to run, you run. No arguments, no heroics, you save yourself." Wanted to argue, but she saw the look in his eyes. This was important to him, essential. "I promise," she said. Admiral sighed. "I'm going to report this plan to High Command and they're going to think I'm insane. But fine, Operation Ghost Storm is approved. Captain and Princess will infiltrate Prime. The rest of Ghost Protocol will provide external support. Timeline, 72 hours. The meeting broke up, led to the training deck. For 3 days he taught her everything he could. How to move silently, how to kill quickly, how to read environments for threats and opportunities, how to think like a ghost, always planning 3 moves ahead. Was a quick study. Her military training gave her a foundation, built on it, showing her techniques that weren't in any manual, tricks learned from years of surviving impossible situations. "Remember," he said on the 3rd day, "being a ghost isn't about being the strongest or fastest. It's about being inevitable. You keep moving forward no matter what. You adapt to every situation. You never stop until the mission is complete." "Or until you're dead," said. "Preferably not that one." They equipped themselves carefully. Light armor that wouldn't slow them down, weapons that were reliable and quiet, medical supplies, communications gear, everything they might need and nothing they didn't. The other ghosts came to see them off. Each one offered advice or wishes for luck. There was a camaraderie here that hadn't expected. These killers cared about each other. They were family in a strange, deadly way. "Bring him back," Captain told. "We've lost too many already." "I will," promised. The infiltration ship dropped them in the outer system. Prime hung in space like a blue-green jewel, beautiful and deadly. Felt a pang seeing her people's fortress world. She had friends there once, comrades. Now she was coming to destroy it. "Second thoughts?" asked quietly. "Many," admitted, "but I'm not turning back." They took a small stealth pod down to the surface, landing in the northern wilderness far from the main fortress. The hike to the military complex took 8 hours. They moved through forests that had walked as a cadet, past training grounds where she had learned to fight. Everything was different now. She was different. The fortress itself was massive. Walls that could withstand orbital bombardment, automated turrets, shield generators, and inside 100,000 soldiers who wanted them dead. "How do you want to do this?" asked. "We start with the shield generators," said, studying the fortress through his scope. "Once those are down, the other ghosts can provide covering fire from orbit. Then we go after the command center where is located. That's in the center of the complex. We'll have to go through half the fortress to reach it." "I know, that's why we're not going through, we're going under." Pulled out old schematic maps that contacts had provided. Beneath the fortress was a network of maintenance tunnels and service corridors. They weren't on any current maps, but they still existed. "I hate tunnels," muttered. "Everyone hates tunnels, that's why they work." They slipped into the tunnel network through an old drainage outlet. The passages were dark and cramped. Water dripped from ancient pipes. The walls were thick with some kind of alien moss that glowed faintly. They moved in silence, leading and watching their backs. Every sound made her jump. Every shadow could hide an enemy. It took 6 hours to reach the shield generator station. They emerged into a maintenance bay where 3 technicians were working, killed them silently before they could raise an alarm, helped him plant charges on the generator's main power coupling. "When this blows, everyone will know we're here," warned. "Then we better move fast." They triggered the charges and ran. Behind them, the generator exploded in a massive fireball. Alarms screamed throughout the fortress. Troops began mobilizing. And in orbit, the other ghosts began their assault. Missiles struck the orbital platforms. Automated defenses were hacked and turned against each other. Commander led a faint assault on the main gate, drawing troops away from the interior, and used the chaos to push deeper into the fortress. They fought running battles through corridors. Soldiers appeared in groups of 5, 10, 20. Each time killed them with terrifying efficiency, and to her surprise kept up. She had been trained for honorable combat, face-to-face battles, clear rules of engagement. This was nothing like that. This was survival, kill or be killed, and her body responded with instincts she didn't know she had. They reached the command level 3 hours after entering the fortress. Behind them lay a trail of bodies. Ahead lay the final challenge. Admiral waited in his command center with his personal guard, 50 of his best soldiers. When and entered, weapons were raised, targeting lasers painted red dots across their bodies. So the ghost finally shows himself, said. He was a tall with silver rank markings, his eyes burned with hatred. And he brings a traitor with him, how appropriate. I'm not a traitor, said coldly. You're the traitor, broke the treaty. You continued his lies, the Empire will be better without you. The Empire will fall without us, shouted. Humans are weak, soft, we should rule them, not marry them. We're done talking, said quietly. What happened next lasted 7 minutes, became death incarnate. He moved through the command center like a storm, his weapons singing. The guards fell one by one. Realizing his elite soldiers were no match, activated his personal combat armor and fought. The warlord was skilled, stronger than had been, faster, but he was fighting a ghost. And this ghost had something killer hadn't, someone he needed to protect. Every time move toward was there, blocking, striking, driving him back. The fight moved across the command center, destroying equipment, shattering screens. Tried to help, but this level of combat was beyond her. She could only watch in awe and horror. Finally found his opening, a fraction of a second where his guard dropped. The ghost's knife flashed once. Admiral fell. The command center was silent except for alarms and the hum of damaged equipment. Stood over his body, breathing hard. Blood covered his armor, most of it not his own. Is it over? Asked. Almost, said. He walked to the main console and began typing. I'm sending a surrender order to all forces in the system. Command codes. They'll have to obey or face court-martial. And if they don't obey, then the other ghosts finish what we started. But they didn't need to. One by one, commanders acknowledged the surrender. Loyalists, seeing their leader dead and their fortress breached, lost the will to fight. The war was truly over. And walked out of the fortress together. Behind them, soldiers watched in stunned silence. The traitor princess and the human ghost, the pair who had ended a war. Outside, the sun was rising over Prime. The sky was beautiful, painted in oranges and pinks. Breathed the air of her and felt tears on her face. You did it, she said too. We did it, he corrected gently, together. The extraction ship arrived to pick them up. The other ghosts were waiting aboard, battered but alive. They greeted with quiet respect and with genuine warmth. She had proven herself. She was one of them now, in a way. The flight back to human space took 3 days. During that time, news came from the Empire. The Emperor had finally acted. With them both dead, he seized control of the military and ordered a complete stand-down. A new treaty was drafted, this one with genuine guarantees of peace. And Princess was pardoned, her titles restored, her honor recognized. The Emperor himself sent a message apologizing for disowning her and acknowledging her bravery. Read the message and felt nothing. That life was gone. She wasn't that princess anymore. What will you do now? Asked her. They were in their quarters on the ship. The fighting was over. No more missions, no more targets, just 2 people trying to figure out what came next. I don't know, admitted. I can't go back to being a princess, but I don't know what else I am. You're my wife, said simply. That's enough, isn't it? Is it for you? Thought about this. Ghost Protocol is being decommissioned, permanently this time. The High Command has decided that we're too dangerous to keep active in peacetime. We're all being retired with full honors. And what will you do? Go home to our quarters on the diplomatic station, tend my garden, read poetry, cook dinner, all the things I love. He paused. With you if you'll come. Looked at this man who had killed thousands, but who still knew how to be gentle. Who had walked through a fortress alone, and then held her hand while watching the sunrise. I think I can do that, she said slowly, but I need to tell you something. What? I'm proud of you for what you did, for what you are. Yes, you're deadly. Yes, you've killed, but you did it to protect people, to end wars, not start them. That matters. eyes grew wet. "Thank you. You don't know how much I needed to hear that." They held each other as the ship carried them toward home. Years later, and lived quietly on a colony world far from both human and core territories. They had a house with a large garden, 3 children who grew up learning both human and traditions, a normal life. But in their house, mounted on the wall, was combat knife, a reminder of what they had been, what they had done. And across the galaxy, on both human and worlds, parents told their children the story of a princess who married for peace, the story of a ghost who ravaged armies to protect her, the story of how 2 people from different species proved that sometimes the greatest warriors are the ones who fight hardest for peace. The galaxy remembered, and because it remembered, it stayed peaceful. In their garden, Watch teach their youngest daughter how to plant tomatoes. He was patient and kind, his hands gentle in the soil, but saw the scars, knew the history, understood that beneath the gardener lived something that had broken armies. And she loved both versions of him, the killer and the poet, the ghost and the husband, because in the end he was just a man who chose peace, who ravaged armies to protect it, who made that choice every single day. And that made all the difference. In the quiet moments before sleep, when the children were in bed and the stars shone bright above, would sometimes ask about the war, about the missions, about what it felt like to be a ghost. And he would answer honestly, because they had promised each other no more secrets. "It felt necessary," he would say, "every death, every battle. It felt like the only way to reach this." He would gesture to their home, their life, their peace. "And I would do it all again if I had to protect this, to protect you." "I know," would reply, "and I would stand beside you every time." Because she had married for peace, but she had learned that peace wasn't just the absence of war. It was something you fought for, something you protected, something worth any sacrifice. And together, they had made the galaxy understand that lesson. The hard way,